Hey everybody, it's Critical Rocket here with a kind of a request video. A little while ago I was asked if I could do a video showing how the different weapons apply to, essentially how they apply to armour and damage and such. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the testing grounds with a couple of different mechs with different weapons equipped and show how damage is applied and how it's affected by things like movement and target movement and all the rest of it. So stay with me through the multiple jumps as I go through each weapon and explain how they work. Okay, so first up we've got lasers. Now obviously they come in small, medium and large for both the clans and the inner sphere, but basically they work in generally the same way. Since armour isn't affected in any different way by the weapons that hit it, it's basically just a type of hit points. The way the lasers and PPCs and the other weapons work very differently. So to give you an idea, this is a medium laser just against, let's say, the left torso of this Atlas. Now, the beam duration will affect how long it takes the damage to apply to that location. Now, standing still against the target and you standing still as well means you apply all of your damage to that one location. However, if I get a run-up on this and I fire at the target close up, you can see that the damage spread across the CT, again on the left torso, but also the arm, which means the weapon damage from the laser actually spreads rather than applying it to the point I first hit. This can just be replicated by the same way if I aim here and then drift the camera to the left. And you can see again that I've now hit the other arm and the other side torso. So this is one of the reasons why lasers are used quite commonly in large numbers, because you can apply a lot of damage in a very quick amount of time based on the duration of the different weapons. So we're going to go on to pulses. Okay, so pulse lasers work a tiny bit differently from standard lasers. Whereas lasers have a kind of drift point of the way that they run, pulses are named so because they pulse rapidly on the target, thus they apply their damage a lot quicker. Hence the wub 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 noise, as I like to refer to it as. Now again, pulse lasers don't just deliver all the damage to one point. Again, if I'm moving, I hit two locations instead of the one. The advantage in the pulse lasers is that they fire a lot quicker, which means you can actually deliver more of your damage from that laser onto the same point a lot quicker than what the duration of the normal lasers would be. Obviously the same goes for large pulses, they just do more damage and the such. Obviously the other difference with pulses compared to the standard lasers, again this applies for clan and inner sphere, is that pulse lasers do more damage at the exchange of slightly less range and they generate a little more heat. Next up we have the PPC, or Particle Projection Cannon. This weapon is a direct fire weapon. Compared to lasers, which generally, as I've shown, spread the damage, PPCs will apply 10 points of damage to any area you hit on the mech. So accurate fire will mean you can very rapidly wear down a location due to repeated fire. PPCs have a little bit of hit reg issue currently in Mecha Online, so you're usually better off if you've got more than two to fire them in chain fire. It also helps with your heat. PPCs aren't the most accurate weapon though, especially on the move, but again, aimed correctly, you still do 10 points wherever the weapon hits, so you don't have to worry about spread so much. That it will just, if I hit the CT, or in this case the left torso, it will do that amount of damage straight off the bat. If I get lucky, nah, I didn't get a head hit there, but yeah, you get the general idea. The damage has stayed exactly where I've hit each time, and it doesn't spread like lasers do. So the advantages are basically a type of energy sniper weapon that doesn't rely on ammunition, basically. Special note should be taken, however, of the clan ER PPCs, which work slightly differently compared to inner sphere ones. Where the damage from a inner sphere weapon will be 10, clan ER PPCs actually do 15. Now one shot has done damage to the CT and the left and right torsos. Now what PGI do with this, rather than delivering 15 points of damage directly to the CT, they have a splash damage system, 2.5 and 2.5 to each side torso. So the clans have a tiny advantage in that, although they generate slightly more heat, they do deliver slightly more damage. In the cases of trying to blow off a weakened left or right torso, even an arm, it means you have a generally better chance at being able to blow off that weakened limb, or being able to leg something. As you can see, hitting the left leg there transferred the damage into the left torso on the Atlas, and the same applies there. So the damage will generally shift around depending on where you hit. So yeah, keep that in mind that Clan ER PPCs do slightly more damage, but they spread the damage 10 to the point of hit, 2.5 to the surrounding damage, or an extra 5, depending on the location. Next up, ballistic weaponry. Now, machine guns are the lightest ballistic weapon you'll get in the game. You can't get any lighter than this for ammunition-based weaponry. Basically, like the flamer, the weapon is more of a critical type weapon, as you can see. The damage is very light. It sounds cool, and the clan ones sound a lot beefier, but it's not really the perfect type of weapon. Obviously the advantage in the machine gun though is you don't generate a single shred of heat for firing these weapons. Provided you've got enough ammunition, you can keep your finger on the trigger the entire round if you had enough. The downsides obviously is the relatively short range and the fact that you'd need a lot of them before you ever actually started to see any real damage mounting up. Again, they're a high crit weapon, they're going to be used on exposed surfaces, and yeah, it's one of those little weight fillers if you really want them, or it's used in bulk, but they're not the most popular choice in weaponry at the moment in MWO. Next up, a twofer here on this video, because we'll be able to show off how standard ACs and Ultra ACs work. Now, the difference in Ultra ACs and normal ACs is that one fires at a fixed speed, whereas Ultras have the ability to double tap, and meaning you can fire 2 shots at once for generally the same amount of heat, but also allowing you to double damage. The Ultra ACs have a chance to jam. Now, all autocannon weapons, and this includes the clans, although theirs work ever so slightly differently, is that, again, like PPCs, wherever they hit they will do damage. So the AC2 applies 2 damage to that location, which could be the case anywhere that you decide to shoot on the mech. See if we can hit the head. Ah, there we go, we did. And the CT, and the right arm. So these weapons are, again, a bit more like sniper weapons, but they can be used in bulk to cause a lot of damage quickly when fired in rapid succession. Now the Ultra AC have a relatively decent rate of fire, and with the Inner Sphere you only get Ultra AC 5s, which means you can deliver about 10 damage in around about the same amount of time that you could fire a standard AC 5 multiple times over. Again, Ultra ACs don't really work any differently for applying damage other than they apply 5 damage per shot. ACs go up, standard ACs go from 2s, 5s, 10s and 20s, Ultra ACs go to 5s, unless it's the clans, which I'll show next, that go up to Ultra AC 2s, 5s, 10s and 20s, so the clans have a slight advantage there. So we'll see that in the next video. Now this is to give you an idea of how clan Ultra ACs work. Much like the Inner Sphere ones, Ultra ACs are a bit more feared because of their rapid fire rate. However, clan ones work like this. They'll fire what amounts to, in this case, 10 damage within the 3 shells that it fires. The difference with clan ones is that the damage can actually travel depending on where you're moving your cursor at the time. So if you're moving against a target and the target's moving with you, then you'll spread the damage across the mech. A bit like lasers, how they work in that respect. It makes clan Ultra ACs a little more tricky to use, but the advantage is that you can have them in much bigger calibers. 2s, 5s, 10s, and the most fearsome, the Ultra AC 20. Last up in the ballistics category, we have the Luxor Ballistics AC-10. This is a weapon that's used by both the clans and the Inner Sphere, and basically acts like a giant shotgun, which fires like this. Now, the further out you are, the larger the spread of the shrapnel rounds. Over greater distances, you can start to see that the cluster spreads. If I fire them over at greater range, you can see the shots flying off there. The pattern is generally quite dispersed. Basically, each little round from the cannon equals 1 damage for a maximum of 10, although they don't generally all hit the same space. You use LB cannons as a critical hit weapon. You want to use it on light mechs that have been opened up to try and blow off body parts, cause internal damage, ignite ammo, that kind of thing. They don't do as much damage for ripping off armour, but they do have the ability to at least guarantee you some minor damage, say on smaller targets at range. You can see with that Jenna that I'm hitting over there. The Inner Sphere have access only to the LB10 model, whereas the clans have LBs 2, 5, 10 and 20s. Okay, so lastly I've built something of a Franken mech to use to highlight the missile weapons. Now, there's only very minor differences in the way the LRMs work for both Clan and Sphere, but the other two weapons work almost exactly the same way. The first up is Streaks. Streak SRMs are basically homing missiles. Once you lock them, you fire. Now, SRM Streaks have a random targeting, I don't know, probability, however you want to term it. Basically, as you can see, each time I fired the missiles, they target different locations on the mech. These are pretty much guaranteed weapons for doing damage to targets, such as lights, without having to worry about keeping a deadlock on them when trying to fire things like SRMs. Clans have bigger streaks again, whereas the Inner Sphere only have SRM 2s. The clans can have 2s, 4s and 6s. 6s probably being the most deadly combination of streak weaponry available to you. Again, each missile applies 2 damage per missile to the location, so an Streak SRM2 can do about 4 damage per missile. Now, SRMs on the other hand are a bit like an LB but with missiles. The locations that they hit are completely random. They have a bit of a spread, basically. Fired at different locations, you'll see missiles will fly off in different directions if you're not dead on, and so not every missile will hit. You can upgrade an SRM6 with Artemis, which will tighten the spread of the missiles and make them much more deadly. SRMs are completely unguided by the lock, so ignore the streak lock at the moment. You pretty much have to dumbfire them because, as you can see, they all miss. They'll apply 2 damage again per missile to the location hit. Finally, we have LRMs. Now, I'll have to get some distance before I fire the LRMs because there's a minimum range of 180 meters. Clan LRMs can fire and do damage under 180, but there's a damage drop-off for every meter under. Now, once you've locked, a bit like Streaks, you forget the button you're supposed to press, and there you go. LRMs have a slight spread to them, as you can see, but they'll generally hit the rough area that you're looking at when they fire. LRMs are a bit like Streaks or weapons that, and SRMs are generally weapons that if you're on the move and you fire them, will change where they hit. Each LRM only does 1 point of damage per location hit, although I think PGI may have changed this to be something more around the area of 0.9 or 0.8. But still, large barrages of LRMs are quite deadly, and will quickly wear down even a mech like an Atlas, which I was just firing at, and even more deadly targets like dire wolves and king crabs. So, yes, the difference with Clan LRMs is that unlike the Inner Sphere ones, which fire like that, as a sort of grouped combination, Clan LRMs will actually fire in a volley system, one after the other, so they'll arc a little better, and they'll deliver their damage in a slightly different spread, but overall they do pretty much the exact same damage. So, I hope that's been helpful for anyone who's interested in how damage is applied. I think I've shown you generally how it works. Obviously, you have to take into account things such as lag, movement of the enemy, your own movement, hit registration issues with certain weapons, PPCs being one of the main bugbears of this, alongside AC-20s. The damages are pretty much self-explanatory. If it has a number after it, that's the damage it does, almost. Although in the case of SRMs, it's doubled, so a 6 is actually 12, a 4 is actually 8, and so on and so forth. And yeah, flamers and machine guns will generally do a very minimal amount of damage, but they apply their damage so rapidly, it's within a second they can do something like half a point of damage, 1 point of damage per second kind of thing. So yeah, thanks for watching. Again, as I said, I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you around. Critical Rocket, signing out.